James Gunn did something amazing with the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie. He took a group of characters that many people didn't even know existed, and he turned them into household names. He took a seemingly unknown property and turned it into one of the highest grossing movies of all time. He also made it really cool for retro, colorful soundtracks in superhero movies. Yeah, the impact of the Guardians of the Galaxy franchise will be felt for decades to come, even if you weren't a huge fan of the movie itself, or maybe you weren't a fan of the sequel. Let me know, which one do you think was better? The production of Guardians Volume 3, that's what we're here to talk about today. And it's been extremely troubled, largely due to James Gunn being fired from the project due to some old tweets. Thankfully, the fans rallied behind him, got him signed back onto the project, and the movie is supposed to hit theaters in May. And now he's actually the co-CEO of DC. That's crazy. Anyway, a lot has happened throughout the MCU since the Infinity Saga ended, and I think it's safe to say that a lot of people haven't been keeping up with the story as much as before. But hopefully, Gunn can bring everybody back for one last ride with the Guardians, because it is going to be one last ride for at least one. Welcome to Chaos Multiverse, everybody. We are going to hone in and give you the best predictions on who is not going to make it out of Guardians of the Galaxy 3, because I promise you, you have my word, somebody is going to fall. Give me your best guess. This is going to be kind of a sad tone video, so stick with me till the end, and we're going to pretty much give you the definitive who's probably not going to make it out of this movie. The MCU, it's drastically changed course over the last couple years. Initially, it looked like the next major story arc was going to involve the Skrulls, but then it turned into a multiverse plot, and now it seems to be both. Those plot lines are playing out at the same time. The Skrulls are about to be major players in the MCU with the Secret Invasion show, and Kang the Conqueror is still out there attempting to take over the multiverse. These two arcs are expected to come together in Avengers 5 and 6, but as you probably know, Guardians of the Galaxy, it's always been kind of a separated thing from the larger MCU. The first movie involved one of the Infinity Stones, yes, and obviously the relationship between Thanos and Gamora played a huge part in Infinity War, but overall, the first two Guardians movies, they were relatively self-contained. With that being said, we can assume Volume 3 will follow suit. Will largely be unconnected to the multiverse or the Skrull conspiracy. Instead, we're going to follow the Guardians as Star-Lord searches for a way to bring back Gamora while tensions rise with the Sovereign, especially after the way they're probably going to unleash Adam Warlock, who is confirmed to be in the movie, played by Will Poulter of Maze Runner and the Chronicles of Narnia. I couldn't be more excited. People have recently started throwing out their predictions for each of the main Guardians and where they will be at the end of Volume 3. So that is what I'm going to do as well, and I think I may actually be onto something here. Let's start off with the big one, Star-Lord. Peter's getting old. That's just the way it is. I'm not saying superheroes can't be older than 40 or anything like that. Look at Robert Downey Jr., but the Peter Quill we met in the first movie, he's gone. Over a decade has gone by in-universe, and he's been through a lot, including the loss of his true love. It's all but confirmed that Star-Lord is going to try and find Gamora, at least some variant of her, but is ultimately going to find that Gamora that he fell in love with is gone forever, no matter what he does. This is going to be a sad movie, people. Get ready. Ultimately, I think Guardians 3 is going to be a story of letting go and finding closure in the loss. Gamora isn't coming back, and Peter is going to have to learn to accept that and move on. He may also struggle with getting older, losing his optimism, and generally becoming more bitter towards the universe that he's now seen the worst of it. Without Gamora keeping him in check, I mean, how good of a leader is he going to be? Without Gamora being his moral compass, what's going to happen to his outlook on life? Honestly, I'm expecting Guardians 3 to be an extremely emotional and possibly even depressing, dark story that ultimately ends in, I hope, a beautiful and conclusive way. I don't think Peter's going to die, but I do think he'll show up in Avengers 5 and 6, but I think he's going to go through a lot of changes in this movie. Whether we still love him at the end of it, honestly remains to be seen. I really hope he's still the same Star-Lord we know and love, but James Gunn loves pushing the limits and taking stories to these weird, unpredictable, and emotional places. He's not going to hold back this time. I think the exploration of Peter's grief is going to get interesting. I also wouldn't be shocked at all if he quits the Guardians and leaves somebody else in charge so he can go on his own and discover himself, kind of like Thor did in Thor Love and Thunder. Chris Pratt has expressed interest in continuing to play Star-Lord, and obviously Marvel Studios wants to keep him on as long as they can, but James Gunn made it clear that Guardians 3 is the end of his story. So we'll have to wait and see what happens there, and left field pick, they could kill him. They could. Now, let's shift gears, and let's talk about Drax. Now, I can absolutely see Drax getting killed off. He's gone through a number of changes since his intro in the first movie. He started out in Volume 1 as a big, intimidating threat that you were half expecting to betray the other Guardians, but by the end of the movie, he was a fan favorite and a true hero. Volume 2 in Infinity Ward showed us a bit more of Drax's more comedic side, which made sense now that he had come out of his shell with his new family. But I think he may be in a similar position to Peter in Volume 3. He's getting older. He's been surrounded by death and combat for as long as he can remember. He wanted Thanos dead and finally got his wish, so what does he do now? Can he rest easy knowing his family's been avenged? Does he need a new purpose in helping people with the Guardians? I could almost see Drax becoming the new moral center of the group. I mean, his rationale and his no-nonsense view on life may help bring Peter back to reality while also reminding the rest of the Guardians why they do what they do. But where does that leave him? What is Drax's new purpose now that Thanos is dead? This is where I think we may get some kind of heroic sacrifice or send-off for Drax. His story's been told, his character's purpose fulfilled, plus Dave Bautista probably isn't going to sign on for many more Marvel projects, especially not with the insane amount of makeup and prosthetics that he has to wear for each role. It would make business sense for Marvel to just let him go, but it would also make narrative sense for his arc to come to a close. Maybe he doesn't get killed off, but I wouldn't be the least bit shocked if he retires from hero work by the end of this movie. Takes more of a mentor role to Mantis, or perhaps settling down somewhere where he can live out the rest of his days in peace and solidarity. With Volume 3 being the final Guardians Galaxy movie, Dave Bautista likely retiring from the role, I'm willing to bet Drax either goes out in a heroic sacrifice or peacefully retires at the end of the movie. Now let's talk about Mantis, Groot, and Nebula. All question marks. I admit it. Groot obviously isn't going to die. But where does he go next? I mean, that will likely be tied to whatever happens to Rocket, which we'll talk about here in a minute. Mantis will also like to make it to the end of the movie in one piece, but given her relationship with Drax, I could see her story going a number of ways. Maybe she'll want to retire after Drax does, or maybe she'll step up and play a larger role in the team. Maybe she's already tried to fill the shoes of Gamora after her death. That seems more like something Nebula would do, but it's a possibility. Nebula, massive change of heart at the end of Volume 2, but right when she was learning to love her sister, Gamora's killed off. Now that Nebula is committed to fighting evil and doing the good stuff, maybe she tried to fill Gamora's shoes in the Guardians, but that would only lead to tension between her and Peter. Quill is still mourning the loss of Gamora, so seeing his sister fighting alongside him would unlikely make him feel, it would actually likely make him feel more depressed, because seeing Nebula all the time would serve as a constant reminder of what he lost. Nebula, on the other hand, would likely grow increasingly angry with the fact that even after her sister's death, she can't live up to her rep. Gamora and Nebula's entire rivalry was based on the fact that Gamora was always the better fighter, but now that Gamora's gone, Nebula may struggle to fill her shoes, which could reopen some old wounds and possibly push Nebula back into the life of crime, or perhaps one of complete isolation. Honestly, I could see Nebula's story going in two completely different directions. Either she was inspired by her sister and continues to fight evil to honor her legacy, or she's tormented by her sister's reputation, and she goes the other way. I don't think we're going to lose Groot. I don't think we're going to lose Mantis. And I really don't think we're going to lose Nebula. Now, let's talk about Rocket. Yep. James Gunn has mentioned that Guardians 3 is going to explain and explore his backstory. We're going to see how he ended up where he is and how he was at the beginning of Volume 1. Rocket has always been very touchy-feely with his origins, seemingly hating the fact that he was an experiment, but also hating the fact that he's an animal. So given with what we know about Guardians 3, a lot of people's fan-favorite choice of predictions is Rocket. And honestly, I'm going to play devil's advocate real quick. With Gunn saying this is the last Guardians movie and also focusing on Rocket, I can see how people think that he's going to get some kind of heroic send-off, but I just don't see Marvel letting that happen. I don't think I do. Rocket's one of the most popular characters in the MCU, and since he's completely digital, he could theoretically exist forever. Now, I know that's kind of a cynical way of looking at it, but you have to consider Marvel's perspective here. Since Rocket is completely animated, he only needs his voice actor, right? So they could theoretically just keep recasting him for as long as they want. This isn't like a Black Panther situation where the very idea of recasting him is just, you throw that out. There's no real human on screen. Rocket basically has an infinite lifespan, and as much as I think it would make sense for him to go out in Volume 3, I'm going to be in the minority and say no. Rocket's been through a lot. It's clear that he's learned how to be a hero, especially after the events of Infinity War and Endgame. I think a heroic death and send-off in Volume 3 would be a great choice, but at the end of the day, I don't think it's going to happen. I think they're going to shock everybody. This is a case where the money's going to talk. It's going to talk way too loud for Marvel. The potential storytelling opportunities. I probably sound cynical. I'm not trying to. I'm just calling it as I see it. Now, yes, James Gunn could build up and we could see his backstory. We're going to feel super bad for him because it's going to be horrible. And then he sacrifices himself and it's gut-wrenching and tear-jerking and oh my gosh. But I don't think that's going to happen. I could be wrong here, and it's an unpopular pick, but I think Rocket's going to make it out of this. I know, it's not what you were expecting. I'm going to tell you who I think is the definitive gonna go out. Now, Guardians of the Galaxy 3 is set to release on May 5th of next year, which is less than 7 months away. Honestly, I'm amazed that this movie even exists given the craziness of the production, but I am ready for it. I mean, maybe it'll tie closer to the larger MCU than the previous entries did, but there's a lot of stories that need to be concluded. Peter's grief, Rocket's backstory, Drax's future, tension with Nebula. James Gunn has not let me down yet, and I'm hoping he was able to tell the story that he wanted to tell. We've been hearing a little bit more about modern Marvel and how they're not giving directors as much control, so we'll see what happens. And I'm here to tell you, my guess, my pick for the one that will not make it out is Drax. It just makes sense. Dave Bautista, you can tell he's done. He's ready to hang it up. And I don't think he has that great of a relationship anymore with some of the higher ups. I just think it's time. He doesn't really have a purpose anymore. He doesn't. He's not really bringing anything big to the table anymore. So my pick is Drax. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you soon.